Professional sport has become one of the world's biggest industries. The best athletes earn hundreds of thousands of dollars every week. Clubs spend enormous amounts on transfers, and fans pay increasingly expensive ticket prices and subscriptions to watch these sports. We believe this level of money has become very excessive. This debate is not about ending professional sport or preventing athletes from earning good salaries. It is about reducing excessive spending while keeping the professional sport more still competitive and profitable. Now, professional sports refers to the sports where athletes complete full time, and our model is that governments introduce measures such as like salary caps, which limits on transfer spending or taxes on excessive sports revenue. And the main stakeholders on this debate is athletes, clubs, fans, and the society. Now, the burden that we need to prove is that reducing excessive money creates a fairer and healthier sporting industry. Today, professional sport already attracts billions of dollars in salaries, sponsorships, broadcasting rights, and transfer fees. It's already one of the most successful entertainment industries in the world. But clubs, leagues, and investors continue competing to put even more money into the industry, even though these additional investments produce only a small improvements to the quality of the sport. This leaves an excessive amount of society's financial resources in one single sector, sports. Now, my main argument is that excessive investment in professional sport creates poor priorities for society. The premise of the argument is that professional sport has reached a point where every additional dollar invested in this produces very little extra value, while the same money could create far greater benefits elsewhere. Professional sport is already highly successful. Stadiums are built, athletes are well paid, and competition attracts millions of viewers. The debate is not whether sports deserve investment. They do, but the debate is about whether millions of additional dollars continue to create meaningful benefits. Now, why is this true? First, companies and investors continue pouring money into professional sport because it attracts huge audiences. This creates an arm race where clubs can compete to spend more on transfers, salaries, advertising, and luxury facilities for the athletes to simply gain a small competitive advantage. Second, these investments create smaller returns. Paying one athlete $500,000 a week instead of $100,000 a week does not make the match 5 times better, does it? Spending another $200 million on transfers barely improves the fan experience, which is the point of sports in the whole place. Third, because capital is limited, every dollar concentrated in professional sport is a dollar not invested elsewhere more important. If companies and investors are no longer encouraged to spend excessively on a professional sport, more capital can be put into more important sectors like medical research, renewable energy, education, and things that create better and long-lasting benefits for society. And this leads to three impacts. First, society wastes enormous financial resources chasing small improvements in entertainment. Second, fewer resources are available for sectors that, as I mentioned before, that improve long-term productivity and quality of life. Third, professional sport becomes increasingly commercialized, where success is measured by spending power than like how good the athletes are. Now, on the comparative,
I
opposition, yeah.
uh if you if what would you feel like if your favorite sport had like less money put in it and like the athletes put has less motivation and isn't playing as well?
Putting less money into the sport does not mean they'll have less motivation because then everyone else will still have the same amount. It's just a slightly lowered down. For example, like as I said before, 500,000 to 100,000, that's a lot of money. So these athletes won't even feel the difference. It's just we're not supposed to spend extra like $2 billion on a sport where the amount of benefit is just so little. Now, opposition will argue that more money makes professional sport better by attracting the best players and improving the quality of competition. However, we agree, but there is a limit to how much money actually improves the sport. Professional sport is already played at the highest level. Paying athletes even more or spending hundreds of millions of dollars on transfers does not make matches significantly better. In our world, professional sport is still exciting. The best athletes still compete, clubs still invest, and fans still enjoy high quality matches. We simply reduce the unnecessary spending that creates very little extra value. That is why our world keeps the benefits of professional sport while avoiding excessive financial waste. Professional sport should be about skill, effort, and competition, not about how much money you can spend. We're not removing success or investment. We are removing excess money that no longer improves the game, but instead wastes resources. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, adjudicator, fellow speakers, and audience. Today, I'm speaking on the negative side of the topic that we spend less money on professional sport. We believe that we should not cut spending money on pro sport. Sport is one of the most important things I've experienced because it's a fun way to exercise while learning new sports. I have three main points in my speech. 1. Professional sport supports the economy and jobs. 2. Professional sport inspires young kids to work harder. 3. Spending more money means better athletes. But before I get into my main arguments, I'd first like to rebut first affirmative. First, we disagree with the idea that spending on professional sport is automatically excessive. The fact that athletes earn a lot, clubs pay bigger transfers fee, and fans buy tickets shows something simple. People value sport. Fans choose to pay tickets and subscriptions because they enjoy watching high-level competition. You said that it's too expensive, not worth it. If it's not worth it, why do people even bother to go? Sponsors choose to invest because millions of people are interested. That's how the market works. Calling this excessive, ignore that this money is not being forced out of society. It is voluntary spend and then flows back into jobs, stadiums, and local businesses. I'd like to go my first argument that professional sports support the economy and jobs. Professional sports are huge industries, and when we spend money on sports, we pay for the athletes, coaches, stadium workers, and cleaners and camera crews. If we spend less money on sports, how would those people get paid? And if they don't get paid, teams would shrink and leagues could literally collapse. This would make thousands, if not tens of thousands of people lose their jobs. If that many people could lose their jobs, that would create a huge dent in the economy. But if we don't spend less money, professional sport could also increase countries' GDP. For example, the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar made over $6 billion just from pro sport. It also creates jobs, meaning not only the country gets more money, but stadium workers get more too. Any POIs?
Yeah, I got a POI. So, are you claiming that the only way to preserve jobs in the sports industry is to keep inefficient overspending in the sports, even though these resources could still create jobs elsewhere? Doesn't have to be sports.
I don't think it's inefficient because after we paid all of the athletes, all the coaches, all of the employees working at the stadium, the sport industry still needs a profit to survive. If there's no profit, then all the sport that you love watching will the quality would obviously go down. How would people watch if there were no camera crews? How would the stadium be cleaner if there's no cleaners? Yeah. My second argument, when children watch their favorite teams and athletes compete at the highest level, they see the result of dedication, discipline, and practice. A kid watching the Olympics or the NBA learns that success does not come from luck, but rather from training every day and never giving up. This pushes them to try harder at their own local clubs, school teams, and even other parts of life, like music, since they know what the outcome of hard work and profession means. Professional athletes often talk about how they yeah.
Does that same innovation and motivation only come from sports? Like you said, for example, in music there are things like concours and competitions that are almost the same as sports playing the highest level. What do you say to that?
Well, sports is one of the biggest inspirations. For example, if you know one of your favorite sports players, they probably had an inspiration for someone they like, and they pushed it harder. So now they're at the top level. This could be the same for music, but sport one of the largest ones. On to my third argument. When we invest more money into professional sports, athletes get access to better coaching, facilities, and sports science. This means they can train smarter, avoid injuries, and reach higher levels of performance. For example, funding can pay for nutritionists, physiotherapists, and modern gyms, which all help players stay in peak condition for longer. This does not benefit the athletes themselves. Fans get to watch faster, stronger, and more exciting games, which mean the sports industry earns more money and it could put more use into the government. As the government obviously needs to tax the thing, meaning the country will obviously get richer as well. If we spend less money on professional sports, teams may have to cut back on support staff and training resources. This would lead to lower quality performances and more injuries. By continuing to invest in professional sport, we ensure that our athletes can perform at their best and provide the most exciting and inspiring competitions possible. Thank you.
Sport is a massive worldwide entertainment that is played and watched at the same time all around the world. Not only that, there are many pro players that are competing in professional sports that earn yearly salaries. But have you seen the amount of money they earn each year? Let's take the global football superstar Cristiano Ronaldo. Many people say he's the GOAT, also known as the greatest of all time. You know how much he earns in a year currently in Saudi Arabia? More than $250 million. So that is why I'll be explaining why the government should lower the prices of the yearly salary a player earns in a year. I'll also explain why the government should limit the amount of money a sports club's president uses. Before I start presenting my claims, I'd like to briefly rebuttal against the opposition's claims. First of all, they have stated that children watching sports would see the outcome of hard work and they'll start working harder and get motivated. The chances of becoming a professional sports player is really, really difficult. Matter of fact, even if you try to train every single day and work your hardest, working 24/7, there's still barely any chance to make it pro. There's a saying where hard work is nothing without talent. In my experience, I wanted to become a professional football player too. I figured out that making it pro is very difficult to do. I know that even if I train outside in the hot blazing sun 5 hours each day, if I have no talent, if I have no chance to get into a local club, there's no chance to even make professional. Even if I get selected to an academy, there is only the best ones will be picked. Let's take Barcelona and Real Madrid academies for example. There are millions of players. There are like thousands of youth players in that academies. Now, only barely anyone makes it out of that place. For example, Korea's Lee Sun-woo was in Barcelona, but he got kicked out because of the FIFA president telling him to get out. Now I will present the first argument on why the government should lower the prices in the sport industry. Lowering the prices would make the sport games more fair. Think about football or soccer, anything you call it. In La Liga, there are strong clubs such as Barcelona, Real Madrid, and Atletico Madrid. What do these teams have in common? They have lots of money compared to other small clubs such as Villarreal and Espanyol, etc. What if we lower the prices? The big clubs wouldn't have a lot of money to buy stronger players. This will potentially lead to clubs being fair with each other. When people watch football matches that are highly biased, such as FC Barcelona versus Seoul FC, for example, people 100% know or are 99% sure that the stronger team, in this case FC Barcelona, would win without a doubt. Lowering the prices for the club's president to use on players and facilities will result in similar skill level, which makes matches more interesting. This isn't only in football. It's also in a lot of other sports. It isn't only in team sports. Let's take badminton or tennis as an example. They're very popular 1v1 sports too. A team with a better racket, training grounds, and facilities against a player with a bad racket, poor training grounds, and poor facilities would easily win because of the higher quality the player has. Lowering the money and prices would make a lot of matches fair, and then everything will depend on the skills of the players after all. Therefore, lowering the prices would make sports games such as basketball, football, and other sports too would make everything much more fair. This is why I am proud to propose. Thank you.
Good morning, adjudicators and opposition team. Today, us as negative team believes that money should not be reduced on professional sport. I have two main arguments in my speech, but before, I'd like to rebut what second affirmative said. They said all the players get too much money, but this is so wrong because players have been practicing for years and years just to be known to the community. How do you think that they don't deserve this much money? Signing off my speech, my two arguments are that athletes deserve what the market pays. This is true because professional athletes train day in, day out from their childhood, and they also sacrifice a lot of time. But even if they work really hard, only a tiny % reaches the top, and they must deserve what they should be given. This is important because imagine yourself working extremely hard every day and not giving up, but in the end, you don't even make it into the finals. This shouldn't be happening. My second argument is reducing money makes sport less exciting. This is true because teams use money to sign players who are talented, and big tournaments like the FIFA World Cups becomes more competitive and entertaining. This is important because you also not only have to care about the players, but you also have to care about the audience watching. If you reduce the limit for how much money is spent, the audience will start to get uninterested because older athletes that have been practicing for years and years will not even get to play in the high-class tournaments. Any POIs?
Yeah, I got one POI.
This is why us as negative team think that we shouldn't spend less money on professional sport because for these two reasons. They've been practicing for years and years just to be qualified into the finals. And also older audience would be so sad to see their best favorite player getting kicked out or not being able to see them play at like one of the huge tournaments such as the FIFA. Finally, they keep saying lowering prices would not make anything depend on skills. That sounds nice, but without serious funding, players cannot develop those skills in the first place. It is money that pays for youth academic nutrition, physics, and full-time training. Take that away and you are not making sport fairer. You are just making it slower, sloppier, and much more dangerous. This is why us as negative teams think that we shouldn't spend less money on professional sport. Thank you.
This debate does not question whether or not to stop investing in professional sports. Looking at the size of the industry, obviously this is too unethical. Rather, it debates of the valuation of entertainment against innovation. In my speech, I will clearly identify the clash that becomes the evidence for our win. Before I would like to start with the clash, I would like to rebut against the first opposition speaker, who has stated that professional sports supports the economy and encourages the youth to work harder. Even the industries, I get that the sports industry has grown and has developed to a point that it is one of the greatest industries that the world is dealing with right now. However, even in those big industries, there are industries that innovate for the better of the world, and industries like sports that develop to entertain. Look at NVIDIA, for example. NVIDIA develops for chips and hypercomputers that constantly develop the world of technology to this day, and is setting a trailblazer for all tech companies. And this leads to a better society as a whole. However, the sports industry, on the other hand, it clearly lacks the societal impacts and primary access towards the society compared to these industries. The response of the POI was also very surface level. Sports is not the only place kids get motivation and encouragement from. Consequently to the World Cup and NBA championships in sports, there are three major concours in the world of music: the Queen Elizabeth concours, the Tchaikovsky concours, and the Chopin concours. And kids who pursue music, who are as numerous as the kids who like sports, watch these performers on this competition, wishing to be like one of those performers one day. The same motivation, just with different contexts. Do you think this is only the case for sports? Every aspect of life and every competition at its highest level is looked up by the youth. Moving on to clashes. The main clash of this debate was to prioritize entertainment versus innovation. This clash is the reason why we bring this debate home. This clash directly values the two sides of the debate, which are the sides wishing to use the money spent towards the entertainment industry for better causes, which is our affirmative side, and the side wishing to protect this revenue, believing it is the right amount. I will tell you exactly why the proposition has won this clash. Our first speaker has mentioned how the development of human technology comes from things other than sheer entertainment. Technologies, medical innovations, and architectural breakthroughs, are the true things that develop the world we live in, not sports media that we watch for leisure purposes. We're not saying that sports is not important. Of course, taking the time to rest and spend one's time to watch their favorite sport is important. However, compared to the potential innovations and breakthroughs that can be achieved with the same amount of money invested, the value of entertainment is not very strong. The opposition has not proven clearly why it's important for the money to be specifically invested in the sports industry, not any other industry, but the sports industry. And why the potential the money embeds as a technological innovator is less valuable than the sporting development. Therefore, I am proud to propose. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. The adjudicator, the opposition, and the government. The government has made an extreme decision to cut the expensive costs on sport and gave a lot of reasons about why they failed to apply to this case. Firstly, they said that they will lower the prices to make sport more fair. The other team talks a lot this team talks a lot about rich clubs and poor clubs, but they never explain how simply spending less money could make things equal. If the first football team you said called Barcelona spends less, so does Villarreal and Espanyol, which teams will still have bigger fan bases, more history and sponsorships. Cutting overall money in the sport does not erase those advantages. It just means everyone has worse facilities, worse coaching, and less investment. Second, they're mixing up the amount of money with how it's used. If they really cared about fairness, they could argue for better revenue sharing or youth development, not just spend less. In fact, our side has already shown that more investment in professional sport leads to better coaching, better facilities, and more opportunities for young athletes. That can actually help smaller clubs and poor players to catch up. And spending money on the sports industry doesn't always mean that it's spending on one team, though. Greater or richer clubs, they could not. I'm not only saying about football and soccer, but there's a lot more different clubs. They could donate to smaller clubs. They could help them. They could create those charity funds and charity foundations. I never said that they must be spending on the athletes. And also, athletes, their wage decides how they play. If an athlete decides to sacrifice his time, because most of the athletes they train, those professional athletes, they train when they're at a young age. They sacrifice their time, they sacrifice their education to train. They should deserve the wage that they should be getting. They should deserve the expensive one because they put so much and they help the country, they help the club to win. Thirdly, they said that games like Barcelona vs Seoul FC are boring because, of course, the result is predictable. But people do not watch professional sport only for perfect odds. They watch to see the world's best athletes perform at the highest level. Sometimes they will look how their performance, how we can learn from that, or sometimes they just do it for fun. Upsets still happen because both sides have trained for years with serious resources. But it doesn't really depend on money that much. It mainly depends how much you put into training, how much you use that money. If we follow affirmative and drain from the sport, the affirmative.
PY.
Yes.
You mentioned how it is depending on the total amount of money spent in training, right? That is exactly our point. We want to make it equal so that all teams have a fair chance of actually winning, right? That's what sports is. That's why sports is fun. What do you say to that?
Okay, so how do I react? How do I do this point? So it's actually, it doesn't depend much on money, as I mentioned before. It totally depends how the athlete trains. So if that athlete is in the better team, since this athlete has trained more, he trained much more better. He put more stuff inside his training instead of some people who doesn't train that properly. That eventually helps the athlete to win and get into a better club. But if we follow you guys and drain money from the sport, the overall quality drops. Weaker training, worse pitches, and fewer support staff. And that makes matches less exciting, not more. And finally, the individual sport example proves our point. They say a player with a better racket and facilities will be a player with a bad racket and poor training. We agree, resources, they matter. But the answer is not to make every racket worse and facility lower quality. The answer is to invest more in professional systems so more athletes can access high quality coaching and equipment. On our side of the debate, spending more money means better athletes across the board, not just only for 1 or 2 stars. And that I'm proud to oppose.
In this debate, affirmative's main arguments were about the players. Players like Ronaldo, they said, earn up to $250 million per year. But there's obviously a good reason for that. Wherever he plays, people want to see how good he is. People obviously want to be inspired, see how he plays. And when he goes there, huge stadiums sell out. If you said it's not worth it, people don't want to go, then why would they want to see one player? It's because the player is good, obviously. And for the same example, if Ronaldo goes after clubs spend more money on top athletes, stadiums sell out as well. TV audiences grow, and local businesses around the stadium earn more. That $250 million transfer fee is not money wasted. It is an investment that brings in far more through tickets and through advertisement and through everything else, merchandise and tourism. Like the FIFA World Cup, people don't go there for fun. They obviously go there to see what it looks like, to be entertained, to be inspired. This proves that high spending can actually grow that sport and the economy at the same time, which supports our side of the debate, not theirs. Another main argument you guys explained was about how less money won't change the outcome of the game. Well, if that's true, then why are there people learning less than people that earn more? For example, cleaners. Who wants to be why do cleaners earn less than a doctor? People don't be cleaners, people be doctors because they get paid more because they're better. Cleaners get paid less because they clean the things, yes, but they're not as important as the other people. So if we spend more money on training facilities, more people would have the more training facilities to be able to become better. If we don't have as much training facilities, how would people recover from injuries? How would people have more balls if they're playing soccer? How would they have coaching staff, or if they have medical staff? That all comes from spending more money. If we put a sudden cut and people aren't happy with their pay, they'll find a better job. And after all those reasons, Team Negative wins this debate. Thank you.
We, as proposition, have 2 clear paths to victory. Now, the first path is that money does not improve performance significantly. Opposition claims that more money means better athletes and better sport. But even their other speaker has mentioned that the performance is mainly on training and money is not really that important. That directly supports our case. If performance comes from how you develop, how you train, as you said, you train really hard, then increasing salaries and transfer fees does not meaningfully improve how athletes perform, does it? It only increases the financial scale of the sports industry. And when they talk about better facilities or medical staff, etc., that is just baseline funding. Of course, every single team would have that, but that's not the funding that we are talking about in this debate. We are not removing that. Even in our world, sport remains highly funded. What we remove is the excessive spending that does not translate into better gameplay of the sport. So they still fail to explain what actually improves on the field when spending increases beyond an already high level of spending. Now our second path is that high spending is not necessary for growth of sport. Opposition now says high spending helps grow the sport, but it's just not exclusive at all. A sport grows because of fan interest, accessibility, spectacle moments, competitive moments, not because of a player, not because of increasing player salaries. In fact, most sports in the world were already popular before the extreme commercialization we see today. Viewership and participation already exist because people enjoy the game, not because they can see people have more money. So what high spending actually does is not grow the sport. It mainly just it concentrates talents in rich clubs and increases commercial pressure. So opposition defends more money on two grounds, performance and growth, but we show both are weak. Performance does not scale with spending, and the growth of sport does not depend on the excess of spending. In our world, sports still exist at the highest level. The only difference is that we remove the unnecessary spending that does not improve the game or is not needed for growth at all. So even if sport is important and expanding, that does not justify the excessive money that they deserve to spend. Thank you.